Okay, we got something here. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so we have a small group, at least to start. So I want to know, is there any value in me saying the Hebrew, or should I just translate the Hebrew into English? What to your brothers? Somebody come off mute and tell me.
My vote is if you feel it will flow better, just
Mm-hmm.
just give us all the points in English. Unless there's something important that we need to hear in the original language. If you feel
Okay.
for context that's important. That's my
Okay,
vote.
fine.
But
Rabbi, the English is good also for me. And I'm
Okay, good.
parenthetical.
Okay.
yeah,
I do speak.
but do what the majority wants.
Okay. The
Majority
majority.
of two.
Majority.
Majority
Okay,
of
I
two.
love it.
Oh, it's
I
just
love it.
two of us? Oh, I didn't
Yes.
realize. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
more,
And I defer to the majority, Mo, so I defer to
Okay,
you.
guys, go back on mute, will you?
okay.
Each one of you. Mute yourselves. I got it. Okay, let me give a little introduction. We're learning a mimer from Parshas Bereishis, not Parshas Noach, from the sefer called Torah Or by the Alter Rebbe. And these Maimorim, I have to say, these Maimorim were part of a major force in bringing me into Yiddishkeit, into what into Yiddishkeit. Let's leave it at that. Why though? Because these Maimorim, they're in Bereishis, so they give us the inner, what's the right word? Everybody call it the inner dimension, the secret. It gives us a understanding of godly machinations. What this God is, this is our God, right? And I will glorify him. Hear, O Israel, our Lord, our God. What is God? How do we, that means the Torah, the tradition from the first man down to now, gives us insight into God, godliness, and the purpose of creation, and with it, of course, the purpose of man, since man is the reason for creation, as we will learn. So this mimer is about man, Adam. And the word he's going to say this, but I want to say it now. The word Adam is a cognate, if that's the right word. It's the same letters as the word Adama, which means dirt. So you could say, and this will be sort of the way you could say on the one hand, we who are the purpose of creation, we'll talk about how we know that we are the purpose of creation, is created from dirt. If someone came up to you and said, you're just dirt, you wouldn't feel good. At the same time, we have another interesting facet, what makes us Adam, I mean a human. This is all about what's a human. I mean, and I never learned really what's a human except in biology texts and certain philosophical treatises. But this is where it all comes from. So we're here at the beginning of the beginning, meaning the beginning of the creation of Adam, the first human. And now the mimer starts. Who says, in order to understand the reason that the form of the body of a human was made differently than all of the other creations. For instance, the vegetative kingdom and the animal kingdom, the way they were created, if you open up your Chumash and look at the 10 fiats of creation, the animals, they were all created with their bodies by the way of speech, as it says, and he gives an example. On the third day, God spoke, and the expression is Tidsha ha'oretz desha. The earth sprang forth or produced produce. And just as he said it, so it was done. Esev, Mizaria, the plants and the seeds, all were created in one breath, which was the breath on the third day of creation, when he created the vegetative substances, the vegetative layer, right? Eitz oisei, the tree which will give. There wasn't any maturation of fruit of trees in order to produce. They were spoken into existence on the third day of creation in full maturity or full immaturity, whatever stage they wanted them to be in. But there was no necessity to give fruits. He just made a fruit tree. And so it was. He spoke the words, and so it was. And likewise, he also brings now on the fifth day, it says, when Sheyitzutur Hamayim Sheretz Nefesh Chaya, the waters were flowing with and fluttering with the which is with a sheretz. Sheretz means a crawly, a creepy, but also the fish were also the swimmies also were created. And the expression that the Chumash uses is they were created nefesh chaya. They were created in a life form with a soul in a life form at the very same time. In other words, as soon as he said, their energy and their body were there without any, as I said, need for maturity or growth or any. Okay. And he says, similarly in all of them, the earth gave forth the grasses and the trees, and every one of these species is, yes, we'll call them the species, right? Were created just the way just the way they always have been. A palm tree was created. I'm just making this up. He doesn't say this. An oak tree, a flower, a lizard, etc. Okay, each one of those was created. Okay, so for instance, the vegetative kingdom was created with a nefesh hatsemechas, a soul which is the soul of growth, and all the animals also. The animal of course was created with the nefesh abahamis, the soul of an animal. Animals also didn't mature; they were put there just the way they would be. And then then they have children, and that's cycles. But the cycle of seeding and generating and maturing and being birthed didn't exist. Things were created just the way they are. He says, likewise, all the animals which come from the earth and walk on the earth. So all of them were living. He brings the fish and the lion, okay? And also the wadam, which was swarming, that's the right word, swarming with animal things, the fish. Okay, goes on, and I'm going to skip over this. They were all created, body and soul together, through a saying of Hashem. As he said, Teitze ha'oretz dasher, let the earth bring forth vegetation. Or sheyitzurtu hamayim, let the water swarm. Okay. Now, turning point. Masha ein came b'bris ha'odem. When it comes to the creation of the human, it's not like this at all. And this is where our interest should peak, since we're probably all humans here. Okay. So, as I said earlier, I'm learning these Maimorim from Yalta Rabbi Bereishis because we're in the beginning. And yes, we're in the Sedra of Noach, but we're in the time that's been driven by Bereishis and will be driven by this peculiar manifestation of godliness, different from all the others, called Adam, the human being, whom we are. So this will tell us a bit about who we are. How were we created? Adam. So, you know the story. His body was created first. Eliza, you weren't on the vote, but and neither was Rachel Bleem, a lot of people, other people who joined us. Okay, but the way we've decided to go, if you object, just come off mute and say, is I'm not necessarily going to read every word in Hebrew. I'll stop when I think it's important, but I'm going to do English pretty, as much as we can. And if that doesn't work for you, shout out. Okay, now when it comes to the creation of human being, the body was created alone, right? It was created from ofer bli shum nefesh, from dirt without any soul. We were basically a goylem. There was no life force. In the initial act to bring us into being, unlike the initial and only act that was brought everything else into being, when it comes to us humans, there was a two-step. The first step, he drew us out in the dirt. He made our body in the dirt. Without any nefesh chiyunis b'seicha, without any enlivening energy within it, just the ability to exist. And we have a pasuk, v'yetzer Hashem esel olam min ha'ofer, or adamim min ha'ofer. And Hashem Elokim, we'll skip that for now, but two names of God. Hashem Elokim formed the man, right? From dust, he was a potter to the clay. He took a hunk of probably moist, because it has to stick together, and he fashioned up our body, which was from ofer mino adama, from dirt, from the ground. As our sage have said, a lot I have to hear. Shaya Rishonet Sever Afroi. At the time of the very first hour of the day, he gathered the dirt together. And at the beginning, man was just a goylem. As it says, Gal Meira Uenecha. This is a pasuk. Pasuk says, your eyes saw my state of goylem. In other words, you as God. Your eyes, God, saw me when I was a state of called golem, just a inanimate, sculpted into a human form, yoitzer is form, without any chayas, without yet any lebedika chayas within us. Okay, and then what happened? Stage 2. This is it's a 2-step. Second step, which we say every morning. And he blew into his nostrils a living soul. So you have this like magic, this inanimate puppet made of mud is blown a soul and comes alive. But only after his body was sculpted and then his soul blown into it. Blown. A lot of deal is made about blowing versus talking in the Tanya, meaning really from the depths, really a deep blow. So our source of our life is from a really metaphorically deep blow out of God's mouth, and the source of our body is the dirt. Okay, so he blows in the soul of life. Without which the person, this goylem, would not be able to walk on the earth the way he does now. The way he is now, as he is a soul enlivening and a body, and when speaking. But what did he do? He took dirt from the deep, and from that he made the body, and afterwards he blew the soul. He just summarizes here. Now, what's the point? What could be the point of this? Right? What could be the point of us being created at all? But what could be the point of us being created in this peculiar way, different from everything else? Okay. So the fact that we were created from dirt results in the level of capability, soulful capability, which we call shiftless. The power to hold yourself low. The power to realize there's an infinite more than you. The power to, it's called humility. In tshuva, it's called contrition. That's your contrite, when you realize, when you think about in relation to what you could be, what you are, or what you could be in terms of what God wants for you versus, okay, but that's all that is grouped in different, subtle different meanings under the concept of shiftless, owing yourself low. We have an innate, Adam, has an this whole question of when does he become, when does Adam become when did the Jewish people split off? And when before that, was everybody kind of Jewish? Did everyone have a nefesh elokis? I mean, we can talk about that, and it is spoken about, but please leave that on the side for the moment. But in the moment, we're talking about us in the state of being the first human. And remember, the first human not only contains the ability and becomes a progenitor of all the races, but he also contains, this is before the split from Chava. So this Adam is containing both male and female inside of himself as well. Okay, and that's all the soul, that's all of what I said is the characteristic of the soul. Different, of soulful qualities. But then there's the body, and the body is dirt. So that built into us is this natural capability to hold ourselves low, and with that to be open to things that are beyond reason, shiftless. So that's from the dirt, shiftless the gabi odom, because the body of the person is very low. It's taken from the lowest of the elements. It's the lowest of level of even lower than the animals, right? The animals weren't made from dirt. The animals were made fully alive, body and soul. We're the only thing made from dirt. So this point number one, we're going to go through here a number of advantages, because there has to be an advantage to this modality of creating, because we are the ones that, and for the sake of elevating the creation, we were created. So there has to be something that matches that. So one of this, the first thing we describe, is that what's innate to us is shiftless, and because we come from the dirt. The animals, they're above us in that respect. They weren't made from the dirt. Okay, so we're distinguished from the animal, from the bodies of animals, which are in that we were created from the dirt, and then afterwards, the soul was blown into us. Now, so how is it? This is the question that he's asked that I've been kind of leading up to. How is it then, if we were created from the dirt, the lowest of the low, how is it that we become Hashem's chosen of all creation? Not the angels, they're jealous of us. They want to come down here and do mitzvahs. Not the angels. Those are his animals. They're his servants. We're his sons, his children, his daughters. He chose us. So he's asking, how does this go together? That being created from the dirt.
The answer is in Chassidus. Chassidus has the answer.
Well, that's why we're learning.
The low to the high. We ascend from the lowest point to the high. And it's the ascension that makes us, that gives us so much credit.
You are absolutely right. And this mimer will help us get us a handle on what those words that you just used and how they can become practical in daily life. But let's stay with that will be the answer. But it's like the saying, light out of darkness. All right, we know that. That's the answer. The beginning is wedged in the end. That's the answer. But exactly how does it work? And more importantly, what capabilities are we intrinsically endowed with all those aphorisms, with all those sayings from Chassidus? Okay. So okay, and at the same time we're the chosen, right? Made from the dirt, but chosen. All right, here's another little phrase. I don't know, Jonathan, if you've heard this one. Acher v'kedim sartani. Backwards and frontwards, you formed me. This is man, description of man. Backwards and frontwards, you formed me. Okay, so to understand this. Okay, why would we come into being in such a way? So the idea is this. There are 4 levels in the structure of physicality down here. The lowest level is the daimim, the inanimate. Then above that is the plants who get their life from the dirt. Then the animals, number 3, who get their life from plants. And then us who get our life from plants and animals. Okay, so we're in that respect, we're the highest in the hierarchy, right? Okay, And that's but not. Mhm.
Is it possible that when it comes to domain that I'm misremembering, but I learned that the Rebbe Elif Shalom would refer to domain as the silent object.
That's correct. Doim is correct, means silent. It means dirt. It means doime, comparable to. It has a lot of different meanings. So the meaning we're taking in our context is the plain one. I mean, the dirt is silent, but the one we're focusing is on dirt. Doimim. The doimim really means, the word means, in this context, inanimate. And that's because it's inanimate, it's silent, right? So that's
Rabbi, it's interesting that you said from behind me and in front of me, you're for me. God is infinite, no time.
That's what he's going to explain.
That's
That's what he's going to start to explain right now.
I was just going to say what you said means that the creation point from before and in the future, what we will be eventually, when we, but in the limit of Ein Sof minus one, it means it's all one. So there really is no time. From behind and forward, it's just one event.
Yes and no. So you're skipping ahead because I don't want to get into that because that's a whole. There is time. There really is time, and there are 6,000 years and two divided into epochs of 2,000 years. And that really exists. The first 2,000 years was tohu v'bohu. The second 2,000 years was Torah. From Avram Avinu until the Mishnah is Torah. 2,000 years of Torah, and the next 2,000 years are the 2,000 years of Ikvasa de Mashiach, the walking toward Messiah. So time is very real. So let's not go there. Okay, just try to listen to what's on the page, because that's the only way you can learn this stuff. You can't bring havanas, understandings from other places, unless it clicks. But let's give it enough time to click. Okay, so to understand this, so these 3 levels. Now the next thing to know about are 4 levels, right? Daimim Sameach Chai Medaber, inanimate, inanimate, vegetative, animal, and man. Right? And wherever you find a number, this is something that I want to give a refuah shlema to Rav Yitzhak Ginsburg, that in his name, I'll just say that he taught me that anytime you find a number in Torah, every place that it occurs, there has to be a relevance amongst all the places that same number occurs. So here we're talking about 4 levels, right? So what's the next 4 that pop into mind? The 4 letters of the Shem Havaya. And that's what he says. That each level of physical reality, from Daimim to Medaber, represents or is an encapsulation and containment. It has a relation to each of the 4 letters of the Shem Havaya. Yud Kei Vav Kei. Daimim, we'll start with the low. I was looking at time. We'll start with the low. It's like dust and stones and metals. They don't grow, right? That's simple. The plant lives, they're the trees and the grasses. And the animals, they have, in addition to that, they have a nefesh chai, ruchni. Plants and animals have some kind of spiritual consciousness. What's his language that he uses? Nefesh chai v'ruchni. A nefesh which gives life and which is spiritual. And then we have the medaber. It's us. That's the 4th level, right? Noisef od al kulam nefesh hasichlis. What do we add to the stack? We add the nefesh hasichlis, the intellectual, which is a bad word, the thinking, conscious thinking, seichel, conscious intellect. Well, let's talk about chokmah bina das. That's what we add to the stack, right? And that's what we Vehine, they're a cloud in general. The animals, they are composed of 2 things: the body, which is vegetative, right, and it's vegetative, and the animal is born small and it becomes big, and the soul that's in it is an enlivening soul. Each soul designed for a particular for a particular species. And that the fact that they come together, together, the body with the soul, as we said up above, through one expression, is because these two levels, Someach and Chai, even though they're two different levels, they're near each other, right? So we go from the bottom. Daimim at the bottom, Someach and Chai, they meet each other, right, in the middle. And we are the big separation. We're the bottom and the top, okay? So now we're going to take the letters of the Shem Havai, I would guess. Therefore, because plants and animals are so near in the structure of the four, they are adjacent to each other and communicate with each other. So therefore, they're able to join together, and they have this quality together. The way they were created. I'm just skipping a little. Yeah. However, I'm skipping a little. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. Now we're going to skip over to back to man. However, in regard to man, that which the body of that his body, the human's body, is made out of inanimate stuff, daimim, as you say, quiet, silent stuff, which is shiftless again. We talked about that. That's the one meter we have. Is, even though it's known that man is the whole point of creation, tachlis habriya, he's the point, not only point, he's the culmination. Remember, we're created last, right? Of all the creation, we're created on the sixth day. And that doesn't mean we were last in mind. It means we were first in mind, which is relating back to some of the stuff that Jonathan had introduced. What's first in thought is last indeed. In other words, it's an indication that our being last indeed indicates our primariness in God's thought. Okay? So we are called the chosen, the tachlis abriya, the whole purpose of creation. We were first in his thought. And we were created by in the inanimate, from the inanimate. Why is that? Okay, here's something that he's going to need a little explanation. Okay, a little background. One of this is not in this mimer, but it's drawing from other valid sources. Bereishis, one of the explanations of why the Torah begins with a beis. Of course, Rashi has this beautiful explanation having to do with our God-given ownership of the land of Israel. But the reason I'm going to focus on is beis is number 2, meaning that this creation that we're all somewhat familiar with, although very narrowly, figured in our position as humans, it's hard to see past our nose. This is the second creation. This is the second creation. And the first creation was called Tohu V'Bohu. In fact, in Bereishis, it says that. V'ha'oretz hoyesot soihu v'bohu. Before the creation, the earth was in a state of soihu v'bohu, which is simply and for our purposes adequately translated as chaos. Meaning nothing was integrated with anything. Nothing could speak or integrate with anything else. Everything was totally unto itself. But another characteristic of this tohu is that the energies were huge. The energies are huge. The vessels were small, so they couldn't relate to each other. But each one of them, it was like you would in 1940, you'd say a ton of dynamite, or a nuclear bomb. This energy, right? Very small, separate things with a lot of energy. And some of you know the story. As it's told through through our Kabbalah, that world didn't last. It broke apart. The energy overpowered the matter. It broke apart, and flickers of all the shards, flickering shards, this is the metaphor, fell down, and as is the want of something high, it falls to the lowest place, and it fell down. What's the lowest place? Planet Earth. Down here in the doimim, the silent realm, is where all these sparks of Toihu fell. Okay. And this is all to explain this next line that I just stopped before we said, to all to explain what have we been chosen for? We're the ultimate in the tachlis of creation. For what? Well, to unbury and release the energy that's in this, in the daimim, in the dirt, in a green way, right? Don't pollute the planet. On the contrary, use it to build up everything, to release, ultimately, to release the light of Mashiach, to release the light meaning energy of Mashiach, the energy of Techiyas and Mesim, etc. And that's what he says. So our whole purpose, when we call ourselves the whole purpose of creation, is to elevate the sparks that fell in the paradigm which I just discussed. Through this, now how do you do this? It sounds like a very incredible job, right? I mean, it is, but it's so simple. The sparks are buried in the ground, right? And so we need to elevate those sparks. Well, the ground is going to give us produce. Now, you could say what I'm about to say about the animals, right? As well, they're going to get it. But remember, we have at the top, we have the highest level that's being blown, literally. The only metaphor we have so far, that part of God which is blown from a very deep place in his chest, so to speak. We have that within us, and that's what's permeating our Chabad, our Seichel. So we have the ability, we're going to eat, but we're not going to eat like an animal. An animal can't elevate sparks. In fact, we're going to elevate animals. How are we going to do it? The mitzvahs. Mitzvahs were given to us because God said, I'm making you the custodian, and not just the custodian, but the implementer of the plan that I have, which is that the sparks of Toihu should be released, but in a way that the vessels can contain them. The energy should be exquisitely turned up, and the kalim should be exquisitely built to contain them. That's God's vision of the future. And so we have that. That's what we were created for. And that's why we're called the tachlis, the purpose of creation. That's what I mean. Adam hu tachlis abriya. The human, the being Adam, is the purpose, the tachlis. What's the tachlis? It's the purpose of the creation. And it is to elevate the sparks that fell. Now, how do we do that? Shenitfilim surachav, you have an attitude toward the things that you need to do, like go to work or get up in the morning, but you have it in a context. You have it in a context that I'm taking this hunk of dirt, this body, and I'm going to conform it to God's will by washing Nagelwasser. It's in the Torah. Nobody made this up. I mean, why do you to make up all the things that a Jewish religious Jew has to do? You have to be a genius. I mean, there's so more than genius. Anyway, and then to say, how could this possibly make a difference, right? Brushing my teeth, I get it makes a difference, but pouring water over my hands, that I make sure it's of certain quality. Okay, so I won't have to go into this, right? We're getting it. Tell me if you're not. He's given us that niftolim sorocha. We put the actual physical deeds secondary to the godly purpose that it's being given to us to use and to bring out the sparks in through the mitzvah of using it for al natilas yadayim. That's a mitzvah. And then we go out, we go out to make our bread, and we have to work hard at it, and we need to make our beged. And all of these things are opportunities to makadosh them, to make them holy. I mean, it's not, right? This is like plain, now we're in simple territory, right? I don't just stuff the bread in my mouth, besides going through all of what makes it kosher, but I don't have to, I'll rely on somebody's extra for that. Okay, so I don't have to go. Everyone here can relate to this. But all of this stuff is the silk, it's to come from worms, and maybe it still does, and jewels come from the dirt, and all of us, and we're given those things as props. I mean, not exactly the right word, but I'll use it, props, to create the stuck in the metaphor, the theater that the Eibishter has in mind, which is the Geula Shlema, the redemption of all these sparks. Okay.
It's actually, one second, it's actually a gorgeous mushal, because when
you think so? What?
Theater, it's a beautiful mushal, because a theater implies that it's not real.
Right.
And Hashem, with the term Elohim that's constantly used throughout creation, it's paired with nature, and nature is what hides the actual reality.
You're
so
good.
So the mushal works beautifully.
All right, thank you. And now he's going to give a mushal. Derek mushal. That's interesting, right? Talking about mushal, and that's exactly where my finger's pointing. Okay. Now, back to our design. We're designed, we got its bottom and top. That's our design. And our purpose is to elevate the creation through our every moment of the day through Torah and mitzvahs. And he gives an example. This I can just probably do in English. When it's necessary, when you need to lift up a building or a house, you're a house mover. That's your job, right? You move houses from one place to the next on a truck. You first to get them on a truck. So you're going to have a lever system at the bottom. That's what he's going to say. If you want to lift something up from the dirt through a vessel, a lifting vessel, which is called lever. Apparently was Yiddish. I don't know, but it's spelled out like a Yiddish word. Lever, which that tool is called a lever. So where do you place the lever? So you have to place the lever in the bottom part of the thing that you're trying to make, and specifically there. He says, for example, if you're lifting up the walls of a house, wall raising, right? You're building a house, and you have to start getting them up to build the walls and the roof. So you start from the bottom, and then automatically you put the pressure on the bottom, and automatically everything else rises with it. I think this is an amazing mushal. You put it on the bottom, and right of reality of the human body, at the bottom place of the entire created scheme, planet Earth, and in the dirt of planet Earth. You put them in the dirt, and that's where we place our lever, right? And that's the only way to get the whole thing lifted. So because when you put your lever in the bottom, also the top gets lifted as well, which is not going to happen if you begin in the middle. You getting it? Why what's different between us plants and animals? The animals are in the middle. They don't have this lever. First, they don't have the capable of the lever, but they can't place it there because they don't have any. They're not from the diamond. They're not from the inanimals. Jonathan, did you want to pop up with something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask one question. Rob, an interesting point you made, if I may be bold and daring. There should be a dialect, and I'm not saying it to impress, I'm saying because this is how I say. There should be, and I'm curious if there's a dialect between the sparks that go into the Adom, or the Adoma, the lowest level, and they interact with the Adoma to reach the highest level. There must be a dialectical relationship between
What do you mean?
sparks.
I don't know what dialectical means in that context.
An interactive relationship.
Of course.
Sparks transform the Adom, the Adama, and that interaction. That's
well, remember,
sure.
Listen. Look, what did he say? Simply speaking, he characterized the top of us as seichel, right? And the bottom of us is the physicality. And of course, there's an interaction between our body and our mind. So absolutely true what you're saying.
And I was thinking maybe as it relates to the whole process of creation, perhaps.
So let's see. So we got the point.
Before we
First
go
of all,
forward, I have a question.
you okay?
So thinking about how we offer ourselves and taking then from, because they understand the muscle of the lever in terms of physics, but when it comes to uplifting us with their carbonos,
No, we're not uplifting us.
we're not uplifting us.
We're uplifting the animal in the
Right.
korbanos, the incense in the korbanos.
Right.
We're
So when it
that's what we're elevating. Huh?
So so we're elevating.
We're the
all
priests.
ring.
We're the kohanim. Never heard the expression mamlechas kohanim?
Yes.
We are called a kingdom of priests.
Rabbi, is Hashem still in the process of creating us? Because if he is, if we're still in the process of creation, that supports your original statement that the sparks that go into the it's a process. So obviously it's not finished and it continues onwards and onwards.
Well,
sorry, that was just
well, the whole of the Shar Yichud V'Emunah in Tanya is based on that idea, and the idea that if he were to stop processing, as you say, this for even in something smaller than a nanosecond, it would all disappear, because in truth, in the high level of truth, there's nothing besides him. So, but let's not go there either. That's another topic. We have to stay.
I didn't want to. I just say we're in a process. Hashem hasn't finished.
We're in a process. Okay.
And that supports what you just said.
Okay. So similarly.
Wait 1 second. So back to the karbanos. So back to the karbanos. When it comes to our mizbeach, having salt on the mizbeach, the salt then is the domain, right?
Right.
And then the lechem panim
and the kataris
or the kasaris is
the sameach, and the animals, the korbanos are the korban, right?
Okay.
Right.
And we bring them as the medaber. Okay.
Yeah, and we're the ones who bring it. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So similarly, like this lever, the soul of a person is enclosed in a body, the low thing, which is from the inanimate, which is the lowest thing of all of them. And this guy, this human, elevates all these things. And and he's the one who elevates them all. And automatically, as he's elevating them, they're all going up, up, up. The tzemea goes higher. He's just next to me. I'm not reading right. All of them go up. All of them, which are in the stack, higher than he is from the perspective of him being a diamond. Okay, and Al Shem Zeh, because of this, because he's able to lift up, from, remember, his seichel he's a medaber. That's the top of he has that power of speech. Where that power of speech comes from, ultimately from the power of the mind. That's the better, but seichel, let's call it a nefesh ha-seichel, is a power of mind, a soul of mind, rather than intellect. I like that better. And he has that. And that, remember, from other places, or I'll tell you the first time, that we're not talking about this here, has an interface through Chokhmah into the vastness of the infinite, which is way beyond or deeper than, rationality. It's called super rational. We have that at the top, and we have doimim at the bottom, and we place our lever in the doimim by applying the mitzvahs to the doimim and to the animal, and with that we lift up the whole stack. And therefore, this nikkur medaber. That's why we're called medaber, and this is an interesting, not a play on words. The word medaber, which means the one who speaks, medaber, is also loshin. It's written in Tilim, yadber amim, that he leads. Yadber meaning lead. It's talking about the king. He leads the nation. So this, and what you think about it, the two go together, because how does a king lead? He leads by edict and proclamation, which is speaking. So the word speak itself is connected with leading, and which means to say that man is the one who conducts. Hamanhiges kulam b'yese maila oisam. He is conducting the whole orchestra. Well, he doesn't say orchestra. He's conducting everything as he is elevating them through his avoida. Now, the soul of a person. Yeah, and this is done only by someone who has the soul of an animal. Of an Adam. I mixed it. Just Adam is on the page. I said animal. Is the only one who has the soul of an Adam specifically, because he is a medaber, which is the highest of the stack of all of them, and that high of the stack comes down and invests its lever in the dirt, right? It's totally different from everybody else. He doesn't put his lever in the plant level, which is on the way down, nor the animal. He puts it down in the dirt, that is everyday life, doing the mitzvahs. And let me get a little, catch myself up here. Okay, I'm skipping a lot because it's kind of a little redundant. I mean, I hate to say that. But, we didn't explain. He's going to explain something which is interesting. We'll have time for this. The Naimer is almost over, but I'm not sure I can get that far. He said that these four levels, remember, Doimim, Sameach, and Chai, Doimim, Sameach, Chai, Medarber, correspond to the levels, each one to the letter of the Shem Havaya, right? So let's take a look for a moment at the Shem Havaya. It might be helpful if you could just write it on a piece of paper. It's easier to see. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, if you're in your mind. So we have the Shem Havaya. Now, the first Hey and the Vav are close to each other. The Hey is close to the Vav. So that's the middle level. That's the vegetative and the animal, two levels which are together. But the level which is the top level, the midbar, the Yud, and the thorn of the Yud. Let me finish and I'll just get back to the thorn of the Yud, which is the highest of levels, right? And it's farthest away, right? Yeah, farthest away from the lowest level, which is the Hey Tator. So you're getting the theme. So there's a Yud in the hook of the Yud. I mean, if you just look at a Yud on your siddur, everything has a hook up and a hook down. The Yud is the point, and Yud is Chochmah. And I'll say this briefly, whether you'll understand, maybe you will. It's simple, but I think so the Yud really, even though it's a dot, and we often call it just a point, like a seminal drop with nothing of character within it at all, but it's going to give forth the Bina, etc. and ever, it has the seminal capability. But it has that's the hook down where it points down into Bina. Chochmah is the father, Bina is the mother, and everything is born from in that relationship. And then there's the hook up. The hook up points to the ayin. It's Chochmah it's a pasuk. Chochmah me'ayin timotza. The plain meaning of the pasuk is from where will you find wisdom? But if you take the words Chochmah, wisdom, it's a statement. I mean, maybe it sounds like a Torah from the Mezrach Magi, but I'm not sure. It's a statement. This question, if instead of being from where will you find Chochmah, it's a statement. Chochmah me'ayin timotza, comes from the ayin. And the ayin is the level of, describe it simply, the level which is called the nothing from which everything comes. So we're inheriting that through the top of our head, which is the top of the stack. And at the same time, we have, unlike no one else has that, right, in creation. And also, no one else has the pureness of the earth alone, pure silence. Well, I mean, Eliza brought that up, and it always seems to be relevant. No one else has that. We're the only ones have it. And we are the ones who raise that whole stack. The ability of our head to get engaged with our feet and do what Hashem wants. Now I'm looking to see if there's another. Okay, this Jonathan, he finally gets to everything we've just said is a pirish, could be a pirish, on the words of Sefer Yetzirah, which Sefer Yetzirah is a Kabbalistic writing attributed to Abraham. There's a Sefer Kabbalah, I always forget the name, attributed to Adam Arishon also, and then to Abraham. And then it goes further from there, in the academy of Shem and Ever, the son and grandson of Noah. And then Abraham comes and learns in that academy. So this is a teaching that comes from God, blown into Adam, and developed for continuous generations, of which we happen to be and merit to be the recipients. Okay, and one of the short things that are said in Sefer Yetzirah is Noitz Techilasan B'Soifan Dafka. The beginning is wedged in the end specifically. So I want to just, this will be an indication of how much we've learned. Does that make sense? From what we learned, does that make sense? To whom doesn't that make sense? That the beginning is wedged in the end, specifically. Jonathan, doesn't make sense to you? Does not?
Well, Rabbi, it depends how I mifaresh what you said. Because if I say the beginning is wedged in the end, that means that, it depends how you look at it in terms of causation. I could say the end is wedged in the beginning. That would make more sense to me.
That
When I
does.
say the
That's
beginning,
the opposite. He's just saying the beginning is wedged in the end because he's going top down.
oh, okay. So
It is expressed in Sefer Yetzirah. The sentence goes on just the other way as well.
Okay, then it would make sense. Okay, because I was thinking the other way, and not so much. The beginning is part and parcel of the end process of creation, the talik, I would say, to say in Hebrew, the process. But it would be easier for me to understand it. It would be less dissonance if it was reversed, as you just said.
Okay, but it's both.
If the end is wedged in the beginning, that make easier for me to
okay,
that
good.
would create less dissonance.
Okay, but let's say, why does he pick then the beginning is wedged in the end? As I said, he's going top down. I mean, he's saying that we have this capability that nothing else has of God consciousness acting upon physical reality.
I got it, and also linked to doing the mitzvahs, which is linked to the bottom, the dirt at that level,
and
bringing it down to reality.
Right, nothing else is created like this, and that's what makes man. Okay, and I'm going to see if there's something else that adds any dimension here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. Now he just goes through the whole, how it flows down. I'll just read the end. And with this is understood, meaning with all that we've said. This is the end of the Mimer. That's written, that which is written in the Bereishis Adam, in terms of what the Torah says about when man was created. Vayetzer Hashem Elokim. Elisa, you brought this up. I mean, you brought up the notion of both Havaya and Elokim. It says that Yetzer Havaya Elokim, two aspects of God, Havaya and Elokim, formed this man. So the Alter Rebbe points out the Beis Shemos. In other words, we were created with two names of God. That's what the pasuk says. Vayetzer Hashem Elokim. Who formed? Hashem Elokim. Why? He lays chabris nafshe v'gufim medavar avadayvin harachaykim zeh mezeh. Why does he emphasize two names, and particularly these names? Because we have been created from two things which are very apart from each other, in Be'erik, incomparable to the other. More far apart, he's talking about Havaya and Elohim, than the distance of the body from the soul, more far apart than the distance of the body and the soul from all the other things. And he repeats that the vegetative in the eye, and the not so the man has been created from two things which are min hakatza el hakatza, from one end to the other, and therefore, kedei yishchab, in order to bring them together, he had to use two names. All right, I can explain what it means by that. I mean, just from other Chassidus. Havaya, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, that's a name of God. That isn't God. It's a name of God. Is an expression of unlimited giving, unlimited Yehaveh, Yud Haveh. It's the Yud and the Yud brings about Haveh, which is being, right? Yud Haveh. It's enough said about that. Elohim is just the opposite. Elohim is about holding back. Elohim, if Havaya is the midah of giving or kindness, also associated with Tiferes, where Tiferes is a blend, but it leads to its dominant part is compassion, giving. And then Elohim. So now these two are opposites, aren't they? Extending and contracting, Havaya and Elohim. And that's the model that we have been made in, right? Elohim, the most contracted stuff is the dirt, right? It's got the most contracted, minimal life associated or visible in it, versus the top of the heap, the conscious, we call it earlier, God consciousness, that especially the top of the Yud, which is able to enter into the sublime and ineffable and all those other weird words, and the preconscious and the super rational, and bring that into consciousness, right? And we've got that extreme. So on the one hand, we're created in the same way, from a very deep pool of depth. We'll associate that with the Shem Havaya, because it's the higher name of God, continual being, this continual being. And then Elohim, which is that we have this aspect of our whole purpose is really Elohim, to be living in a very contracted state, contracted meaning where the effulgence of godliness is very contracted and not visible, for the purpose of digging out these sparks through, you don't need a tool, a shovel, you need Torah and mitzvahs to dig out the sparks. And when the sparks are dug out, to elicit a light which has never existed before. And that's the reason we've been created.
May
Kind of it, yeah.
May I, Rabbi? Thank you.
Sure.
And don't be upset with me, but I just, the beautiful explanation you gave. I asked myself, maybe I was going directly too far to the point, but I said to myself, the Yud K Vav K explanation was, is, and will be the spiritual element, and Elohim devotes the physical powers of Hashem in creating the universe, the physical universe. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm simplifying, but if I ask that question, doesn't that relate to the example, the dogma you gave of the sparks going into the Adoma, the physical world being represented by the Adoma, and the sparks being represented by the Yud Kei Vav Kei? And if that's true, when he talks about man, that means that man is in the physical world, both names of Hashem, physical creation, yet he has the hakara, the consciousness of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which sparks along the continuation of creation.
That's what you just said is one of the explanations of that we were created in God's image. Everything we can say about God, we can say about ourselves. Isn't that weird?
I never heard that.
Yeah.
Can I ask, why did Hashem...
Because it comes from the word, it's interesting. You broke this. It comes from the expression that man is Adama le'elyon. And here, Adama, this is the same word, dumb, right? Ultimately, at its core, God is silent, even dark. There are a lot of Kabbalah that use that language. So-called before the creation, there's only him.
Yud Kei Vav Kei.
So he exists in a state of essential no, before Yud Kei Vav Kei.
Oh, Yud Kei Vav, okay.
Yud Kei Vav
It was
Kei,
always
Yud
Yud Kei Vav.
Chachma, Hey Bina, Vav the Midos, Hey Malchus. None of that stuff is formed in the central point of God's
I
essence.
thought it was, is, and will be.
That's also true. Time didn't exist.
Yeah, before
Time
eternal
doesn't
time. Okay.
exist at the
He was
central.
above it.
He was, well, whatever you want to call it. Yes. So, what was your point? I forgot what your point, because something you said led me to it. Something you said led me to
I
it.
think the concept of the Hakara, the consciousness of was, is, and will be within the sparks that went into the physical creation, Elohim, and the reason why you said both names had to be used.
Okay, right. So, right. So the Yud Kei Vav Kei already is exhibiting is the pasuk that said, God says he appears, and he says, Era, I appeared. And Chassidus says, why doesn't it say what name? Why didn't it say God appeared? Like, Elohim, because it was I, the I which is deeper and singular than any name, right? So name is, once you're talking name, you're talking externality. And once essence has no name. I don't know how we got there, but that's the beginning. That's the way I'm getting there. The essence is, God says when he gives the Torah at Mount Sinai, the very first commandment is that Anochi Hashem Elokecha, know that I am God. No name, except if you want to call I a name, but it's not one of the names. And this name, Anochi, is a very strange word. If you want to say I, you say Ani in Hebrew. Anochi is a Rashi Tevis. Each letter stands for something, which is, in Hebrew, I'll just translate the English, I blew my very self, I put my very self into the Torah. So essence of God is in the Torah. And essence of God is in our soul. That's why we're a match. That's why Jews keep their noses in the 5 books of Moses. Because
So why does the Shem say Yud Kei Vav Kei? I was, am, and will be. That begs the question.
One is a dimensionality in space, and one's a dimensionality in time. Was, is, and will be is a dimensionality in space, in time. Yud Kei Vav Kei.
And Elohim.
Chochma Bina Das is a
Yes.
structure of
and
letters.
And Elohim is the physical, and that supports what you said. Your original. Sorry. Okay.
So anyway, I don't know how we got there, but we got there. Good. But the last line is the most important thing that we carry through Havaya Elohim, through the light, the energy, that's Havaya, that is invested in the darkness, that's Elohim. We've been given the capability and responsibility to mine that field, to mine that dirt, and release the sparks of Tohu. And that's one way. This became almost a cliche in the Pays, in the 80s, when the Rebbe was with us in the physical body. And he coined it, so it became that the job, you could say that, we'll end with this, that the job, we could characterize the job of what our job is in terms of what does it mean to bring the redemption. It means, he says, lights of Tohu in vessels of Tikkun. Tikkun means good vessels. We want the lights of Tohu, but not in vessels that shattered, but in good vessels. And when the lights of Tohu, when we make ourselves good vessels for the light will shine in a way that it'll never go out. Okay, I'm going to end you with that. Okay?
Thank you, Rabbi.
All right.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Right. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi.